For some of you, was anybody here at the last session, just prior to this one? Anybody? Just one. Okay, that's not too much redundancy. It's going to be a lot of more use case related, sir. So it's I think you'll find it interesting. So we're excited to be talking to you. What else did I want to say? I guess I at this point in the week, did everybody have a great Summerfest Tech? I know I did. Yeah, all right. I tell you, I've known Lena since she did this probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, and there was like 100 people on the Summerfest grounds. And every year I've come and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So again, I'm Dave Woodward. I'm the guy up on the far right of that screen. I'm the founder of a couple of different companies, and I run Beers with Peers Tap Talks, which I'll go into a little bit more towards the end. You're all invited to come to that next one we have in October. Yusuf, you better be there this time. All right, yeah, exactly. So I'm going to just share a few thoughts, and then I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel, and then they're going to have their own chance to discuss what they do and, as the course of the conversation, I think, today. So I guess what I wanted to share is that over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working a lot with Industry 4.0, helping companies with strategy and procure equipment and create solutions as a partner. And I'm looking around today, and I think, well, we've made a lot of progress, but, we're in a new era now. I mean, we've got the things like, where in the past we could enable, adaptability and customer centricity and resilience to like supply chain disruptions and get the speed of innovation up. But that was back then for business advantage. But now that's truly just business survival, right? To be able to do that type of thing. But fortunately for all of us now, we've got tools. We've got things that you've heard of this week, like AI and IoT, industrial IoT. We've got real-time data capture and analysis, which we'll talk about today. And of course, our panel topic today. The main thing we're here for to talk to you guys about is hybrid networking and the technology that's going to provide that high-speed connectivity between all those devices on the edge, back up to the systems of record. I like to break things down into analogies, right? So I came up with one. It probably sucks, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Hybrid networking, I wrote, goes with Industry 4.0 and digital transformation, like two of my favorite things in the world, beer and pizza. Each one is great on its own, but together they're awesome. All right, so that's what we're going to get our theme today. So if you want to learn more about that, then you're in the right place. So now I want to introduce everybody. So to my, on the corner, all right, way down there. That is Yusuf Abu Hatoum. He's the Chief Information and Technology Officer at Palermo's Pizza. We got a real win in 2016 when Yusuf decided to move here from Kansas City. Kansas City's lost our win. In the past 8 years, he's been a CEO, a CIO, a CTO at various manufacturing companies around the southeast Wisconsin. He's got a wealth of experience in ERP, and business transformation and digital transformation as well. So we're excited to have him on the panel. Thanks, Yusuf. Thank you. And then next to me, right here, Joe Heyman. He's the executive director. I know that the last panel talked a little bit about the Connected Systems Institute, and Joe is the executive director of that organization. Over the course of the talk, I'm going to ask Joe to talk a little bit more about the CSI and what they do and how they are enabling manufacturers of all sizes, in the state of Wisconsin and the whole Midwest, really, through that facility that they have on the UWM campus. It's really exciting. Joe's held senior engineering leadership positions with Regal Rexnord, and he is passionate about STEM and upskilling the workforce and anything related to Industry 4.0. Welcome. Last but not least, Todd Kelly in the middle. He's with our sponsor today, STEP. He's their CTO. He's been with STEP for 3 years, and before that, he spent 8 years as the CISO for a company called Cradlepoint that's now part of Ericsson. Todd hails from Chicago, and we're glad to have him here. All right, everybody knows everybody now, so let's go ahead and get some talk going. Yusuf, could you do the first one for us? I'd like to, and I think the panel and the audience would like to understand what your definition of Industry 4.0 is, in simplest terms, as you've been doing your career and kind of getting to know what that means yourself.
Sure. Well, hello everybody. In the simplest terms, I would say it's about access to systems, data, and working smarter. making sure that we automate. But often when we say the word automate, folks, they just want to automate without having underlying business process. So I would say Industry 4.0 kind of taught us how to be disciplined and to make sure that we look at systems, because especially with COVID, we all got hurt with some folks that ended up being on the other side, meaning on the good side, where they become like necessary. I forgot the term they use. Like, you have to keep going, whether you're in the food business and what have you. I was at the Sellers at the time, and business started growing. And if it wasn't for automation, we would have shut down at that time. And we couldn't get access to folks for many reasons. So automation helps us in so many ways, and also access to data. So that's we can elaborate later, but.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask each of you to respond to this one. So could you guys share like a real world example from your experience where that demonstrates a successful implementation of Industry 4.0? You kind of alluded to it just right now.
You want me to keep going? Or?
Yeah, whoever wants to go.
Yeah.
There's not that many people here. It's the last one. We're good. So.
Okay. So I'll give you kind of fresh examples, and I go a couple of years later back where was more of a bad use. If I wish we did use Industry 4.0 and 5G and what have you, that would have saved our butts. But at Palermo's Pizza, I mean, obviously we make pizzas, but we make roughly about 400,000 pizzas a day. I mean, we're talking volume, right? So much automation is happening at Palermo's Pizzas. If things happen at the wrong stage of the manufacturing process, a lot of bad things could happen, meaning thousands of dollars. We can't shut down the line. So a simple example is we brought into enough systems at the bakery side, which is, it's all about the crust. It's all about the dough, right? If the size of the crust is even like a quarter of an inch bigger than it per spec, it will literally downstream will shut down the line. Because machines are tailored, it's that tight. Yeah. The tolerance is so tight. And back in the days before automation, we would basically reject it on the line, shut down the line. Even if at 1 minute, that's thousands of dollars. If it's 1 minute, and usually it's a lot more than that. So we start actually inspecting the size of the crust right up front and reject it there. Rejecting dough is a lot cheaper for us than shutting down the line. And we can actually sell the dough, to be honest with you. So it's not.
Oh, really? So it's not lost?
Yeah, I mean, not that we want to, brag about selling bad dough, but it's actually good bread.
Yeah, you sell it to a competitor.
Yes. Yeah. But the other example is being in the food business. Nobody wants to eat a pizza with metal in it, right? That's not a good thing. And so we invented or worked with the manufacturer to come up with a process, automated process, where if we actually we check for metal and foreign objects in the pizza, and it will reject it so fast. And I mean, we're talking every 1,000 pizza, maybe we'll reject one. Can you imagine? We were doing it manually before, and we were not catching as many. And it's little. I mean, we're talking maybe like 1% of that, and that's a huge, huge game changer for us. So those are two examples, and we'll elaborate on the seller side later when we start talking about 5G and what have you, but that's two good examples that I'd like to share.
Very good. Thank you, Yusuf. And I guess for us, recent one in past was a large material handling company, makes huge forklifts, material handling, I mean, massive ones. And they were experiencing outages across their parts facility, which serves the manufacturing side, which also serves their global partners. And they fly around on parts pickers scanning, and the Wi-Fi network would often go down or not perform very well. So when it went down, the network goes down, it's like $100,000 a minute. So multi-million-dollar a year type of impact there. And then their robots, the OT side, invested in, were just kind of sitting there parked and not being utilized because they weren't working very well on the shop floor. And then the other two pain points for them is they weren't able to get good cellular coverage inside. So connected worker safety, but also they were embedding telematics technology in their product that needs to get activated and tested, but they couldn't do that. And so those two use cases really resulted in the infrastructure they were using, switching to extending a public network from AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile inside using Cat6 cable and like Wi-Fi access points, putting that in there to propagate the signal, and so everybody's phones work. They can activate all the telematics coming off the line on those forklifts. And then the other one is implementing a private 5G network, which is kind of using the same technology, Cat6, actually just two of these in the facility, and connecting all those scanners over private 5G, and they're kind of been up and running since with no outages. So that's kind of the use case we had. There's wood up there, yeah. No metal, though.
No metal.
Not yet.
Joe?
Yeah, thanks. So I'll take a little different swing at this. You know, at Connected Systems Institute, one of the really the cornerstone themes to our mission is around enabling and developing manufacturing workforce of the future. And so the use case that I'll share around Industry 4.0, you know, in about the 7 months that I've been at CSI, we've been out to almost 40 manufacturers around the state of Wisconsin. And had a really great opportunity. There's a manufacturer out in Waukesha that we visited. Small to medium-sized manufacturer, right? And they saw opportunity, as Yusuf talked about, automation to bring in some robotics. Now, you know, typically when that type of investment is made, there's also a cultural change we need to be careful with. If I'm the worker on the line, and Yusuf is my boss, and all of a sudden I see a fork truck rolling up with a robot. Man, I'm starting to sweat. I'm getting nervous. Like, what's going to happen with my job? And so the example that I'm sharing, again, role playing here. If Yusuf is my boss, he gives me two choices. Right? First choice is, hey Joe, you can pack your bags and go. We've got a robot to do your job. I don't want to take that choice because I've got kids at home. I've got bills to pay. I've got a mortgage. I'd like to stay employed. So, since Yusuf is a great guy, he says, Joe, option number 2 is I'm going to send you back to school. I'm going to send you to a place like CSI so you can learn how to program that robot. You can learn how to use the robot to actually improve our operation. And oh, by the way, now that you've gained these new skills, and since I'm in a good mood today, I'm going to pay you a little bit more money as well. So, and that is a like honest to goodness, very true use case, and the company leader who's done this repeatedly out in Waukesha has built a phenomenal culture around you know, a motivated workforce that wants to get upskilled, that wants to learn what's the latest and greatest technology to make the operation perform better, which makes the business perform better. So cool story. Again, automation and talent kind of tied together there.
Thanks, Joe. Well, as we're talking about like evolving people's skills, Yusuf, how do you think like someone in your role, you know, how is that role evolving, you know, in order to be able to embrace Industry 4.0 as a CIO or a, you know, CTO? Are there new things you have to start thinking about that you didn't in the past?
Well, yeah, I can start by saying we're not an infrastructure folks anymore, but that's old news. That's about 15 years maybe ago. We truly need to be business partners. I mean, that's really the key in the seat I'm in, and the leaders that I'm constantly coaching and developing, and the new folks coming into the industry is technology. Everybody has to have technologies, whether you're an accountant, whether you're an engineer, whether you're an IT person, technology is given. But be a business partner to really understand the function first. It's important. This is what the new role is all about. But in addition to that, it's all about innovation. A lot of folks are like, they're so busy doing the doing, they really don't have the capacity or the time or whatever it is to really look beyond what they're doing. So I believe the CIO, CTO role needs to always be sensitive to what's going on, not only from a technology perspective, but from a productivity perspective, manufacturing perspective. What kind of, you know, I'm always like at Cellars at Palermo's, and I used to do the same thing at Cellars. Every day, I make it a habit. I walk through the shop floor. Now at Palermo's, I don't do the whole shop floor because it's massive. I mean, I just don't have the time to do it. But I do. There's a place at Palermo's, and I would encourage a lot of you to reach out, and I would love to give you what I call the Yusuf Abu Hatum 15-minute tour, which I do every day. Is I walk and watch the production floor and see what, like, you see some of the things that, like, it's repetitive, but there's so mistakes and there's so many non-value add. And back to the value stream map, you take a look at it. I do my own Kaizen events by myself and look, I'm going like, wow, what if there is a better way to do this? Now, am I in charge of manufacturing? No, I'm not. But that's where the innovative comes in. And then I walk out and talk to the chief operating officer and say, hey, Peter, I wonder if we can do the sausages a little bit different. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. It's like, you need to be thought of as a business partner and not a technologist.
That's awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So let's segue a little bit into strategic and operational impact. And I think I'm going to target this one to Joe. Joe, what do you think the top 3 priorities are for businesses that are looking to invest in Industry 4.0? Is it like efficiency, innovation, resilience? What are they looking to get out of an investment?
Yeah, I think it can be any of the above. I would start with what makes a successful investment in Industry 4.0, and a common theme that you'll hear us talking about that enables Industry 4.0 is understanding your data, right? And I think we've all probably heard the terminology like garbage in is garbage out, and so that's not the situation we want, right? So being able to understand what does good data look like, then creating processes that are sustainable to gather good data so that we can use that high quality data then to make the right downstream decisions, which will enable more efficiency in the operation. Yusuf gave the example of a Kaizen event, right? That's a continuous improvement event in the operation targeted at improving efficiency, cost reduction, et cetera, right? So that's one. Also with high quality data, it gives us better visibility to where can we innovate? Can we find process innovations to make? Can we find product innovations to make? Maybe that pizza dough, Yusuf, there's a new product innovation that we can find by better understanding the ingredient mixtures that go into to making that bread dough, for example. And again, that's all governed by the quality and consistency of that data input. I'd say another outcome when we think about Industry 4.0, and again, I'll kind of get back to the unique spot that CSI plays, is around talent. Right now, we've got this really new opportunity to look at from the shop floor, right, from the worker who's doing the job, making the part, all the way up to the top floor, the CEO of the company, a new set of vocabulary that they need to be fluent with to understand how is technology going to impact my role, which will help the company perform better. So there's a lot of opportunity there as well, which feeds into that Industry 4.0 outcome.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. I think we'll kind of continue with that theme of data analytics. I don't know, TK, you want to take a shot at how data analytics and artificial intelligence are going to impact, or currently are, or will impact advanced manufacturing?
Yeah, and
Yusuf, if you could follow up after that.
Yeah, it'd be great for your input, because we're usually the plumbers that come in and securely get everything connected, because all the data, getting the data is a big challenge, not having reliable connectivity. But some of the use cases we see, it could be as simple all right, we're going to do Industry 4.0, but we've seen energy consumption, especially in small and medium manufacturing, energy consumption is a big cost. And and the cost of, I learned with the power, is your top 15 minutes in a month that you use dictates your monthly rate of all usage. So when just going in, taking your existing infrastructure, putting in a few $1,000 box that could clamp onto your power, understand power utilization, and wirelessly transmit that and just run some compute on that and continually monitor, you could find where you can optimize. Oh, Joe walked in this morning, turned on all the compressors at once. Oh, the compressor power is is going on more often and cycling more. There's a leak in the and the PSI. But the one that the lead one they used was their HVAC system had variable frequency drives, and at the smart manufacturing facility in Indiana, and they weren't really optimized. They noticed this in their power monitoring, so they were able to call the manufacturer twice because they said they already optimized it. They said, no, you didn't. And they came back and there was a bug. So they did monitor and had a 60% cost savings, which was about $250,000 a year savings. So when you think about Industry 4.0, it's these simple like use cases that have a big impact on the small as well as the big, bigger manufacturers. And then the other one that we've seen recently that seems really awesome is computer vision. It's also, I think, disruptive, and that's a big term too, that you guys hear. But I'll say specifically, computer vision, you use computers to look at things that are cameras, but they're highly specialized, have to be set up the same way. If you move them, the models don't work. Well, now these software could be like $20,000, $30,000 software package, use off-the-shelf cameras, much cheaper cameras, doesn't depend on light as much, doesn't have to be right in the right frame, and provide some inspection capabilities and have some feedback into a PLC to kind of shift the dough off, or it could be used for stuff like that. So those are a couple that we're seeing as low-hanging fruit without a lot of infrastructure, without hiring AI scientists to go train the data. Very, very easy to implement and low cost.
Well, I mean, I'd like to take a little bit of I like to digress a little bit and then come back to the questions. The digression is often in IT, many IT shops, they act as the cops, as your mail file is too big. Your OneDrive you're consuming too much data. We need to limit you. And I've always been, even when I was in my 20s, young and full of you know what, I always said I'm the friendly cop. I like to be out there serving the community. And data is going to grow. I don't care whether you like it or not. It's constantly growing by the minute, by the second. Look at all the pictures you can take on your iPhone. I mean, honestly, I used to like when I used to have an album. There's 2 albums, maybe 144 pages, and they meant so much to me. Now I have 4,000 pictures in one night, and I have no idea how to find any. So the reason why I'm digressing is because this is a reality that we cannot avoid. The data is going to continue to grow, whether we like it or not. So speaking of Industry 4.0 and what do we do with all that data? Well, we're collecting it, especially with automation. Guess what's going to happen with automation? It collects a lot more data, right? So what do we do with that in combination with access to lots of data with artificial intelligence? If it's used properly and responsibly, you can actually start doing something with that data. Like, for example, if we can start measuring how often certain machine runs and when they go down, why do they go down? Is it a special job that we were running on this job? I'm talking about unscheduled downtime, for example. We can use that data, simple example, to predict when those machines going to go down. And guess what? Maintain them before they go down, right? That's the key, right? So working smart, that's what we can do with the data. Working smart instead of working hard. We cannot, it's not sustainable. We cannot work hard anymore for many reasons. The growth we're talking about in COVID at Cellars, Home Depot, Menards, those are the key customers of Cellars at that time. They basically said, forget about all your customers. We want all your productions. We can't do that. I mean, you have to give, a little bit here, a little bit there. So how are you gonna manage all of that? You're gonna manage it by prioritization, making sure who you give to what and where and what. All that is all about data. You cannot lose your customer. You cannot lose your machines. You cannot lose. On the top of all that, access to employees. It was really difficult to get, even today with the growth in the economy. I mean, it's not sustainable, continue working harder. You cannot find the people, even if you want to. And if you do, you only find them for 4 months because the next competition, or whether it's a competition or the next manufacturer in town, is going to steal them from you because that's the name of the game now. There's not enough workers out there. So we have to revert to working smart by leveraging the data and see what AI can do or not for us. But you got to remember, as I preach constantly within my team, AI is, don't forget what it stands for, artificial. It's not us. It's not the real. You cannot continue using it without really go back and say, is it generating the right results for us? Because we don't want to, in the process, become dumber, right? So.
Yeah, I saw something the other day said artificial intelligence will never replace or fix natural stupidity. So anyway, had to laugh at that one. We're going to continue a little bit on that theme, but I think I'm going to ask Joe to start us off here with, in your view, what are these biggest obstacles, right? I mean, I've been talking Industry 4.0 for many years now, and I mean, we're making progress, right? But what are the obstacles to companies adopting it?
Yeah, I think obstacles to adoption. Yusuf started touching on it. It's defining the right problem to solve. Right. I think there's a lot of and we see this speaking with manufacturers. Many understand, yes, there is this thing called AI, and many of us, right? I think show of hands probably are using AI to do something in the past week, right? Whether it's the chat thing to write an email. I'm taking a family trip this weekend, so I plugged into ChatGPT. How can I find 10 equidistant stops between here and Montana, where we're going to drive this weekend? So, it plans a trip for me. But back to the manufacturer, how do I actually use this technology to improve a KPI that moves the needle for my business? Right. The story I like to tell when I think about obstacles in manufacturing. I used to work for Regal Rexnord, and I was an engineering leader for one of the business segments. My peer was our VP of operations, and I would go to him. His name was Antonio, and I'd say, Antonio, this technology is going to save your operation this number of dollars every quarter. This is going to help us. And he dug in his heels extremely hard and said, Joe, you need to prove it to us like 8 different ways before we do something new. Why? Because, as the operations leader, he's the guy that's responsible for the revenue number coming out of the plant every single month. So to the obstacles question here, it's helping the manufacturing leader identify what's a problem, right? Is it a quality issue? Is it a throughput issue? That then we can start addressing with a technology. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's automation. But first, identify the problem, start small, and then learn from there is what we've seen as a good process to get started and remove those obstacles.
Thanks, Joe. TK?
I think we see the same thing. Like, there's a lot of pain right now. People have made investments in like robots, and they just sit there. I mean, we've seen them at very large companies that you would just shake. It just is surprising. And so without and the OT to the IT conversation, the organization structures are not optimized for innovation right now, in quite a few cases. And even McKinsey is recommending like the CIO take over IT on the shop floor and IT and centralized IT, and then have dotted line into the COO, so that the innovation with all the data and the technology you can start to solve problems together. But so that's what we're kind of seeing, is that divide is the OT teams invest in this technology thinking it'll work, but the infrastructure doesn't support it. And that's a real problem when you spend millions of dollars on robots and automation, and it's just not working very well. So I think that's a big challenge, and we also see ourselves coming in to say, hey, what is the problem? What are the other problems? Because some of this infrastructure for one use case may not substantiate that investment. To put in a private 5G network, there's lots of different cost solutions on the market you can optimize it for. Same thing with bringing in the cellular signal, but you have to layer on more use cases and understand where they're going, because what you're going to put in now what they're going to put in next year might crush that investment. So we do see a need in working with the business leader and the IT leader to try to quantify the TCO and an ROI. And a lot of the customers don't have the time to really sit down and get people together and really quantify and understand the urgent and expensive problems. So we've started to embark on some of that to help, as an added cost option to bring in a consultant to sit down and do that. But that's not happening, and that's always a worry for us where, yeah, put in this technology, it'll work. What else are you going to do? I don't know, but it'll solve this problem? Yes. Okay, thanks for the check, but I don't think I'm doing you a lot of good if I don't understand the rest of it. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing right now is there's a lot of pain. They want to solve it to get the existing investments, and yeah.
Yeah, in addition to the cost and complexity, I would say as you embark on newer technology, you still have to deal with the current technology that you have. And to me, that's one of the challenges that we have is like there's a lot, manufacturing, I'm pretty much a manufacturing guy. I've been in manufacturing my entire career. Replacing a manufacturing equipment is not let's go to OneDrive, let's go. It's not it's a capital expenditures, not only the cost of it, but also how you implement it into your manufacturing process. So you're basically stuck a lot of times with old equipment. And you need to figure out how to actually get the new equipment to work with the old equipment by integration, leveraging all the above. So to me, that's the most challenge that I feel. It's how do you actually integrate the old with the new?
That definitely comes up all the time. Joe, I had one for you. At CSI, you get to talk to a lot of different companies, right? And I'm curious, they're not all giant, right? Some are smaller. How do they, what do you tell them, how they get started?
Yeah, good question. And I would, very similar to my previous answer about like let's identify the problem. And I think pretty quickly we go out to the operation, we do a Gemba walk, and we figure out like where is a tall bar that we want to solve in the operation. And then, right, once we identify, here's a short list of improvement opportunities that we've got in our operation, let's create some space for a team, a very focused team to go and work on it. Because current state, there are some companies that are pretty far ahead, that they're doing this stuff really well. But that's not the majority of companies. And we don't have, and Yusuf, I'd welcome your feedback on this, I haven't seen a playbook yet that says, here's your standard work to how you go and you put AI in place in your operation to improve from here to there. So it's a lot of like, you got to learn by doing it. And first identify a problem that's solvable and measurable, and then put some focus there and continuously improve. It gets back to that just general culture of lean and continuous improvement, albeit with some new technology now.
All right, great. We're going to segue a little bit into kind of a different topic, and I'd like to ask Yusuf, from what I see, the perception is that increased connectivity of Industry 4.0 devices and so forth on the shop floor could perhaps expose a company to some sort of a security risk, or a hack. Have you ran into that, or is that an issue, or am I just dreaming here?
No, absolutely. It is an issue, but it's just like any other projects. First, you start with security has to be top of mind, no matter whether it's in the shop floor, whether it's the front office, and what have you. So there is, basically for every project that you do, you need to make sure that you keep your environment secure, safe. You educate your employees what to do, what not to do, how you do it, and where to do it. But also, when all fails, you really gotta do segmentations. You gotta separate the real stuff from the not so real, the stuff that's gonna shut you down. You gotta lock it down and making sure you have tight access control, and nobody even from the front office through VPNs, you lock controls. Nobody can access those machineries from. So when you do those kind of measures, like education, training, making sure you secure your environment and make sure that you separate your networks, production versus front office, I think that's a lot of good practices that you should really make sure that you stay.
Okay, great. TK, do you have anything to add to that at all? If not, we'll move on to the next one.
I do.
He's never afraid to talk. I know him pretty well.
Well, because it is. I think we were just dealing with a Southeast manufacturer starting to get some connectivity going, and boom, he gets hit with ransomware, and so we had to help him through that. And so I do feel like this is still a very good topic to talk about is do have a risk management strategy or do a risk assessment across your infrastructure. Number one thing, and do a inventory network health assessment. Understand all your assets, where your data is, and have a risk assessment so that you can come up with a plan to better secure. Is it segmented the way we need to? So I would say that. Is just something to consider, and I just always urge people to make sure you have that.
All right, great. I'm going to ask one question for everybody in the panel, same question to everyone, and then we're going to take a kind of a segue break here and see if there's any questions so far. And then what we'll do after that is we'll take on some little bit more technical details, with regard to this topic, and then we'll have another, kind of a round of wrap up, and then we'll be done and it'll be happy hour. How about that? So, all right. So here's the question. What do you guys see as some of the most disruptive technologies, or trends that are on the horizon that will impact Industry 4.0? Joe?
Yeah, I'll start with compute technologies, right? And we think about AI. If you look at how fast AI is being adopted and how much data that we're using with the acceleration AI, we're pretty quickly going to need to have new compute technologies to keep up and get ahead. So quantum computing, neuromorphic computing technologies like that will be the enablers and the disruptors of AI going forward.
I think as you try to get data and optimize your business, connectivity is what we're seeing as the most disruptive of adopting hybrid networks. What we mean by that is today everything's wired, but now you need to be mobile and move things around. And you need to sometimes use Wi-Fi, sometimes use Bluetooth, sometimes use LoRaWAN if you're thinking, or private 5G, or public cellulars. And this is like the hybrid network environment. And so in order to really get connected and have that be reliable and have your business run on data, you have to be able to manage this hybrid environment. So I think that's very disruptive for lean IT manufacturers that just have one maybe IT person doing all that. So that's probably one of the most disruptive on the horizon.
Yeah, I don't know if you call it disruptive, but it's something that you have to continue to operate while you're dealing with all the disruptive technologies. Everything's moving to the cloud. I mean, at Palermo's I just signed a deal to go with Oracle Fusion, 100% in the cloud. We go from 100% on-prem to 100% on the cloud while you're doing, yes, absolutely. That is disruptive. And that's all right.
So it takes compare that compute issue that Joe was talking about.
Absolutely. And so that, make sure that you have, from a connectivity perspective, now it's like you can't just walk into the computer room and say reboot and restart and what have you. You have to make sure that you have enough tunnels in backup of the backups, so you're not disrupting the operations. So to me, it's like manage the disruptive technology, but you still take care of business, and right now cloud is the name of the game. You can't even get a decent packages on-prem anymore. You just can't. Yeah. So.
Thanks, guys. Does anyone have a question for the panel? Oh boy, got one. Go ahead.
Is there a way to take this data and have someone look at it in a quantitative manner, in a manner where it is they already trying to solve the problems and address the issues from an intellectual, not artificial intelligence, but an intellectual way in which that's kind of like what we used to do back in the day. America prided itself on having middle managers or people that were hired to do just the things you're doing. And address the part about working hard, because see, when you burn out your employee, this is not productive, gentlemen. Yep. And once I heard something about how people were working them like slaves, and I'm like, what the heck? This is America? Come on, guys. but it speaks to where we got on board with AI, and it speaks to what kind of like where we have been, but now this is a time for shift. This is a time for the dialogue, and I appreciate this altogether. But where can we, with the data, can we, has anybody addressed it? Is there anybody now like me, because I'm showing up and I plan to work, but is there anybody able to address the data in a way where we're analytically looking at it with the ideal and the goal to manage it and address these things from a logical, productive, hands-on? Because every day we get up, we still got to work. Every day we get up, those machines still got to run. The mail's got to go. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Keep in mind, I've been at Sellers for 6 months now, yes, long time. I started with observing, obviously. I need at least 30 to 60 to 90 days of understanding where the bathrooms are, right? And it's a massive place. And what I noticed, and this is one of the things I shared with the ELT, the executive leadership team, on a weekly basis. We meet every Monday. And I basically, my standard answer has been almost from the first week I was on the job is, boy, people work hard at Palermo's. And they took it as a compliment. I'm like, okay. I kept saying that. They really work hard. We have so many meetings, and hopefully nobody reports me back to Palermo's because I still need my job because my twins just got accepted to Marquette and Madison, so I need my job for another few years, right? But there's lots of meetings, lots of reports, so I quickly, within 2 months, I said, we've got to come up with a better process around our data. So I created a project, and we had a small committee saying, what is a good name for this project? We came up with All Things Data, and it's catching on. People are loving it. So what is that all about? It's about talking to every individual's, every functional area. What kind of data? We're looking at all the reports. There's hundreds of reports that are coming everywhere. And at Palermo's, because we're in the food and beverage business, I mean, we need consumer data. We buy a lot of data, and I'm talking millions of dollars of data we buy. We make use of it, but not very effectively. So as a result of that all things data, we created a project where basically we want to take all of that data, both internal, external, structure, unstructured, no matter where it's coming from, and we're going to dump it into whatever you want to call it. You want to call it data farm, data lake, data whatever, data warehouse. And we wanted to start kind of looking at data and transform that data in a good, useful format that any business owner can actually, with a Power BI or Tableau, can actually make sense out of the data because it's unmanageable right now. So this is happening as we speak. We haven't really formally launched the project, but I would say this is a prerequisite step before we start yanking the ERP system, moving on to a different ERP system. You got to make sure your data's not going to go anywhere. It's going to grow. Yeah. So did I answer your question? Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Hello? Testing. Okay. I can't hear. Yeah. Oh. Delayed reaction. Okay. All right. So now we're going to segue in kind of our final segment here where we're going to get a little bit more technical. So are you ready with your clicker?
Oh, yeah, I got a clicker.
Yeah. He has a slide. All right. In the previous session, which most of you folks weren't at actually, but they talked, a little bit about how to afford it, right? But before we go down there, we want to give you a little reason, to understand just what you would gain, from implementing some sort of a hybrid network. And that's where TK has a couple of slides, and he wants to chat about that with you guys.
Yeah, and the common question, we get asked, how many people are technical? Raise your hand. Okay, so we got a good chunk of them. So this will be how I go about this. That helps me. So at that material handling manufacturer, we implemented a technology that we're having problems. we weren't able to get a lot of before and after before data points. So we went in after the infrastructure was put in for private 5G. This is taking basically what runs on a public network in very small form factor and running it in this manufacturing environment. And it's a 180,000 square foot building. They had Wi-Fi. They still do. So what we did is we augmented Wi-Fi with two base stations, two radios on this chart. In the middle, the orange boxes are the two CBRS radios. These are private 5G access points, essentially. So they're a little bigger than what you see on you know, you have at home or you see around. But two of those were able to cover this whole area. They have 39 access points. And so what we did is we went around 20 different points on the live network doing upload, download tests. We did TCP and UDP tests, which TCP was testing the reliability and seeing how reliable packet communications happen, and UDP is testing the unreliable packet communications. So we were looking at throughput, we were looking at latency, we were looking at packet loss, and we're looking at out-of-order packets. And what the problems they were having here in the environment was it was very mixed, like because of the mobility aspect and the way Wi-Fi works. Wi-Fi, the client, the device you have determines when you move from one access point to the other. And Wi-Fi, the other challenge with Wi-Fi in an environment, outdoors or large indoor environments or very congested areas, is because the client decides where to connect, also they all share the same medium. In other words, when I want to talk and we talk over each other, I said, oh, I'll wait, go Joe. Oh, go Yusuf. So it's contention based. So the more speakers, the more endpoints you have, it only can handle so many. So each access point can handle about 128 users, but if they all start talking, your performance goes way down. Now you can imagine you start enabling your smart factory or Industry 4.0, this is where the Wi-Fi network starts to break down, but it's great for the tablets and the manager's offices. So we measured all this. This shows a couple things. One, with just two CBRS points to overlay covers this whole area with all their high-speed parts pickers moving around, and share some of the results we found from this. And we have more data. If you're interested, I'd be happy to go in deeper. But the blue line that you see that's kind of sawtooth in all three of these charts is the Wi-Fi, and the orange straight line is the CBRS testing. So we did this on laptops. We used Zebra scanners with a diagnostic mode to determine which access point and the quality of, the quality of connection we were doing in all these tests, and we saw just tons of variability. So on the jitter, it was up to 15 seconds at times with the Wi-Fi. It was always a millisecond, around a millisecond constantly with the CBRS testing. With the lost datagrams, which is UDP, lost datagrams, depending on what application you have, they may or may not be able to help with that. It was near zero. Again, a lot of variability, thousands and thousands of lost datagrams. And then out of order datagrams on Wi-Fi was near zero with CBRS, but on Wi-Fi on these stationary portable tests we did, was highly variable. So this problem, this was a lightly loaded network. There was about 25 CBRS client scanners on there, probably about 30 Wi-Fi clients, doing business on this at the same time. So you can imagine now Wi-Fi, if they were to start to ramp up the number of devices, this goes exponentially, starts to be an exponential degradation. And with CBRS, you're able to program it so that it will always get deterministic latency and scheduling, because the network determines when you roam and how you get quality of service. And able to do that with forward error correction and some clever technology. It also brings segmentation, so you can actually segment different applications on different slices of that spectrum. It's very easy to manage in some cases, but anyway, we thought, a lot of people always ask us, why is Wi-Fi bad? Or it's not bad. This is the hybrid environment. Use Wi-Fi around the edges. And actually this, just to show how nimble they are, this was done 3 months ago. It's already changed. This floor plan has changed. They've already changed the racks. They're 20, 25 feet high. They brought in liquids. we have not had to change anything with the RF model. So the CBRS spectrum and technology is very resilient to go through, even with liquids and metal, it's able to kind of handle that a lot better than Wi-Fi because it can transmit at different power. It's lightly licensed. And so anyway, we're continuing to test. We're always skeptical. We want to make sure, what we're doing is actually working, and we're learning as we go. But always happy to share this kind of data, and I thought it'd be appropriate for this venue to kind of share, what that is and why it is.
I'm going to keep you going just a little bit longer
Oh,
on something
perfect.
else. Yeah.
Sure.
So, and I'll ask this to the other two guys too, if you can think of anything while he's talking. Are there any other use cases besides the whiskey house in Kentucky that might be at a good place to put this kind of technology? Just saying. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people are technical. Okay, this is a lot of metal and parts like environment, right? And then you brought up the whiskey house. So the whiskey, we're based out of Covington, Kentucky, which the whiskey business, bourbon business, is $9 billion going to $13 billion, and I think we got some players here in Wisconsin that actually have their own whiskey. But so we're doing next. They're getting to the point where they want to track everything, where it's going, where it is in the distilling process. So lots of sensors. They're building next generation networks. So you saw like 2 to 39, right? 2 CBRS radios and 39 access points. That's not always the case. And those kind of environments, lots of liquids, we're seeing more like a 2 to 3 to 1 ratio. So it just depends on the RF modeling, how much infrastructure you need. But that, again, is tracking more assets where they are and getting data off sensors. So we see mobility is the big one. Robots, highly moving things, people going in and out of buildings, between buildings and a campus environment. I mean, the technology outdoors can go, theoretically, they say 2 miles. I would say like a mile, maybe more. You got to look at the terrain, but it can keep everybody connected, whether it's connected worker using push to talk or a phone. Also in healthcare, we find this. I know we're talking about manufacturing, but healthcare is an industry 4.0, and they also have some of these same challenges. So, and then the other kind of use case we're seeing for a hybrid network is bringing in a public cellular network indoors is for health and safety. We have a large car manufacturer where they get in this environment. There's tornadoes. Families can't communicate. They wanted it because the cellular signal is not good in there, so they brought that in. It's improved morale, improved safety, but it's also enabling other communications. And then the other one I see is computer vision. Is starting to really take off. So you need to really determine this. To get
For
that
sure.
data back and act on it are probably the top 3.
All right, great. Yusuf, Joe, can you think of any other use cases that we haven't talked about already? If you can't, that's fine. I just don't want to put you on the spot.
The only thing I can think of, and
Yeah.
that happened to us at Sellers, is like really the flexibility that it brings in.
Yeah.
When you have a warehouse that you really can't structure it like it's all the bin, they're going to be at the same place every single day. Some warehouses are basically empty space, and depending on what product you store, it could change the complete layout of your warehouse. And if you stick with just the pure Wi-Fi, which we ran into a lot of problems, you can't keep up with it because you have to structure it based on the layout. And to me, that's the only thing I could add is it gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Oh, that's great.
Of
Yeah.
the layout.
Yeah, thanks. Joe, anything? Not really? Okay, that's fine. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Are you finding that in terms of sensors, there's a duplication of existing sensors primarily, or are you able to pull off of existing sensing, or?
The sensors that we're seeing is specific to that whiskey industry, the whiskey house, and they're a contract manufacturer. So it's a greenfield build. So they're building this in to their infrastructure for the whiskey distilling process. Other sensors I kind of talked about is kind of add in a power metering sensor. We do see other sensors for predictive maintenance that monitor vibration, heat, torque, and things like that. We haven't seen too much of that being utilized on a private infrastructure maybe being used on wired. And I understand there's also challenges because you got the manufacturers like Rockwell, you can use their models and data and get the same value. So yeah, and I wouldn't say, and then also I would categorize that we've been in manufacturing for probably almost 2 years now. So and as plumbers, so that gives you context about my experience. So I wouldn't I'm just being transparent. So but all the use cases we see, the sensors are really in greenfield. Camera systems enabling them, like in a welding process, a camera being able to follow it and go back and fix it before it gets out. But hopefully that gives you more.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of smart sensing applications.
Yes.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with one more question, then a few more comments, and then we'll be done. We'll be ready, I guess, for any final questions from the audience, I guess, at that point. So here's the last one, guys. You alluded to this already, TK. Implementing one of these private networks, right, hybrid networks, is not inexpensive, right? So what advice would you give to a company that's considering this, making that transition? How can they assess the return on investment? Is it a long-term thing? Is it hopefully there's some short-term? If you want to start, and if the other two gentlemen have any input, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think, well, with any infrastructure, again, it just find a really good integrator. There's a lot of vendors that are just, and we partner with all the major vendors out there of this technology, and we test it. So it's really about, understanding what the infrastructure you would put in, how it could help you. Because it isn't sometimes even putting in infrastructure. It's like just use the public 5G networks, and we can help you manage that plus what you're doing and solve problems that way. So it's really, around that. I think now the cost structure of this technology, 3 years ago, it's come down probably in half in the last 3 years. There's two categories of this private 5G infrastructure. It's kind of mission critical. These are usually done with the vendors that build U.S. Cellular and Sprint or T-Mobiles and Verizons. That's like Ericsson, Nokia, and those are a premium. And then you have a whole other slew of really good, reliable technology vendors there that have really good price points, are very enterprise focused and easily managed. So, they can go anywhere from, it depends on the modeling, but your price points could be $1 a square foot to $3 a square foot. It depends. It really does depend. So just find a good integrator that can help you understand those use cases and what technology would fit that, because sometimes it might be just wired, might be Wi-Fi. And even this wireless technology on wired networks, I think the other thing I would point out is time-sensitive networking, ProfNet protocols can actually run over these wireless networks now reliably for robots, that communicate. So I think just find a good integrator, understand your use cases, and if you don't, just find somebody that can help you do that. And then there's also managed services now. If it's security, you could do SOC as a service. You could do managed services. You could do a CapEx or OpEx model. And right now, because it's newer, I would say we've deployed quite a few networks. You can actually do a very cost-effective proof of concept in your environment to really prove out the use case for the other business leaders. So that's another thing that's
awesome. Any final thoughts, Yusuf, Joe?
I would just add to what Todd shared. Make sure you have the right stakeholders at the table. Right. It's probably not a singular functional decision. There's IT involved. There's OT involved. The operation, probably engineering and supply chain as well. So make sure they have the right people at the table.
Great. So final thoughts, final things to leave you with is that STEP is the organization that is one of the sponsors here and help present this panel. Todd's from STEP. They're going to be at My Beers with Peers sponsoring the event that's at Lakefront Brewery. Put it on your calendars, October 10th, Lakefront Brewery. If you go to beerswithpeers, all one word, .org, that's the website. There's more details on the organization and more details on that particular event. And then, Joe, do you have any final comments on CSI? Otherwise, we'll open it up to questions and call it a day.
Love to see, interest in CSI. If you've got interest in coming out and learning more about what we do, certainly look me up. And also, I'd be happy to reciprocate. You know, I mentioned we've been out to about 40 manufacturers in the past 6 months. We want to continue that. This is voice of customer for us to make sure that we are orienting our educational and our technology programming so it fits the needs of industry.
All right, thanks. Any questions? You're here. You're already here, man. Well, there's a question in the back. Go ahead. Could you come a little closer to us? Mhm. Yeah, TK.
Yeah, and it's not that it yeah. So the technology is CBRS, Citizens Broadband Radio Service, and it's in the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum. So it's not quite as high as 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz or 7 gigahertz. So it's you know it's not a bad technology to use. It's lightly licensed, so it's able to broadcast at and indoors at 1 watt and I believe 50 watts outdoors. So depending on what you're using it for, and it's taking whatever all the carriers have the same infrastructure running when we make phone calls on the towers. They've compartmentalized that, and you run it in your own environment. So what we do is we look at that brick building, and we do modeling just like the carriers do to say, all right, here's how thick the walls are, and we determine how many of these access points you need, which is all over Cat6 cable, and then that determines how many you need, and it will work. And those indoor environments and those kind of, you'll probably see if you need 4 to 5, sometimes 2 to 3 Wi-Fi access points, you would need 1 of what's called a CBRS. Private 5G is another, private LTE. These are all acronyms or synonyms for the same CBRS solution, okay? And then the other thing we got involved in 3 years ago during COVID was using this technology for the digital divide. In East St. Louis, we helped the school district set up 3 or 4 of these access points in their community covering 5 square miles so they can penetrate the home and extend their classroom into these kids' homes that don't have internet. So it will work outdoors, and the mileage will vary depending on foliage and the terrain. It's not a very elegant solution in a lot of cases if there is a lot of trees and terrain. So we typically, unless you're using it in a very clear environment, it will penetrate a building and a brick wall, just like your cell signal for your phone will, because it is in that 3.5 gigahertz spectrum. Oh yeah, so there's 2 technologies we were talking about up here. One is this private 5G, 4G CBRS. That's what I just talked about. The other solution we've been implementing, part of we feel it's Industry 4.0, is that use case right there. I can't get cell signal from my phones, from Cellular indoors, or from AT&T, or from T-Mobile. Actually, I need them all in a fire station use case. So what we can do with it, there's different ways of solving that problem. It's called distributed antenna systems, typically in the past where they put bleeding coax, but there's new technology out where you can use Cat6 cable, a size of an access point. It'll broadcast all the carrier spectrum you want in there, so on that one access point, so that when you come from outside into that building, your phone will work. You'll have to buy that infrastructure. It's not always cost effective for maybe a nonprofit, but it will. That's what we've been implementing to kind of bring that signal into manufacturing plants, into hospitals, because they're also terrible with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The,
so we can talk more. But
yeah, I was going to say the panelists will be here after because they're all staying for happy hour. So, so you can go ahead and come on up, have a chat with them,
Yeah.
you know, get their cards and so forth. And we want to thank you all for coming. All right.
thank you.